A 3, which in a corridor means roll d6 on the traps table. Yay! All right. So that's page 62. I already rolled and got a result of 2. Poison gas. Great. Level 3 attacks all the characters. All characters must make a defense roll, ignoring the bonus from shields or armor. If they fail, they lose 1 life. Blech. All right. So dwarf first. I mean, without shields or armor, he's just rolling a d6. He doesn't get any particular defense roll. I mean, let me look at these RPG light rules. There's a section for on page 67 for optional mode that you can kind of play this game in. That's called RPG light. And let me see what their recommendation is. Oh, I guess it's halflings and not dwarves. Yeah, it says here, like, a recommendation. If you want to, like, lean into the theme... Oh, hi, Garavik the Noble. Thanks for jumping into the chat. If you want to lean into the theme some more, they have some suggestions, like halflings are very healthy and should be given ample bonuses against dangers that affect the character's health, such as poison, gases, or disease. I was thinking that dwarves might be included in that, but they are not. So, yeah, there's nothing to help the dwarf right now except for a good roll that needs to be higher than 3. And I got a 4. Great. So he passed. The cleric doesn't have any special bonuses to his defense, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, all his defense bonuses come from his armor, so he's just got to roll better than 3. Nope. So his health is reduced by 1 down to 4. All right, Shaden. He gets a 2, so nope. He's also down to 4 now. This trap sucks. And Elderast, of course, gets a 1. So he's down to 5. Okay, well that sucked. Let's make a note of it, though. Gas trap! Yay! Okay, so at this point we are going to start backtracking, so I'm going to adjust my order before I forget and get myself in trouble. So, we've got quite the trek ahead of us. We're starting here, and we need to make our way through... let's see, it looks like this, going from here, does this, yeah, first this will be a check here, and then a check here, and we're going to be checking all the way back, at least until we get to here. That's going to be the first time that we are heading into a new room. So, let the checking begin. On a 1 or 2, I run into a wandering monster. So we'll start with this room. Nope. This room. Yep, wandering monster. So before I forget, I'll just make a little note that the party is presently here. What wandering monster do we get? Where's that page? 57. 57. Let's do the roll first. It's a 5. Oh crap, I think that's a weird monster. I think that's a weird monster. It's a weird monster. I'm glad I changed my order. So, let's roll and see which weird monster it is. 1, 2. We're fighting a Minotaur. This is another one I don't think I've fought before. So let's bring the camera over here. He snuck up behind me. Luckily, my Party order was prepared for such an eventuality. And we're ready to go. Pretty sure he gets first attack, though. I can't remember. Let me refresh my memory on that. Yeah, they automatically attack first on the first turn of combat. And characters can't use their shield bonus on their first defense roll against wandering monsters. So that sucks. Yikes. Oh, and then they really go after the character with the lowest... Let's see here. Extra attacks going against hated character types first, and then against the characters with the lowest current life point total. They do roll morale, unless they're a monster type that never rolls for morale. Okay. So, this does count as a boss. I mean, that doesn't really... It's good for, like, the XP roll afterward, but it doesn't help me in any other way. So, it's a boss. It's a Minotaur. Its level is going to be 8. Eek. Life points 4. Now, what does this thing have going on? Due to the power of its Bull Rush charge, the first defense roll against a Minotaur is at -1. Minotaurs hate halflings. I have no halflings in my party. Right? The rogue is, he's just a rogue. Reactions, which I don't roll. Could bribe him on a 1 to 2, 3 to 4 fight, 5 to 6 fight to the death, so. Alright. Well, he's going to get the first attack. He gets 2 attacks, right? Yeah. Better make a note of that. But thankfully, the guys that are going to get him are the guys who I want to get them. So, starting with the dwarf, he's defending, and it's a -1 defense roll. Yeah. But just this first one. Based on that wording, I don't think the cleric has to roll at -1 defense. 4. He doesn't get to factor in his shield, though. That sucks. Oh, that sucks. So that modifies to a 6, but then further modifies down to a 5, so he fails his defense roll. So he is going to take still just 1 damage, so I'm grateful for that. Second attack coming at the cleric, who does not get to use his shield, but doesn't have that -1 thing. Nevertheless, he fails his defense roll, bringing him down to 3 health. Jeez Louise. Maybe I should have healed. Well, I can always heal in combat as well. It just uses up one of the cleric's potential attacks. Although he's not exactly been the MVP of attacking this dungeon run. The rogue is, I've been having him attack now and then, haven't I? Even though he's my lantern guy, I think I fell back into that old habit of having him attack. I think when we were in a room, I just forgot that he's the lantern holder. I just still can't get my head around. I think I'm just going to house rule that the rules for the lantern are like the rules for mapping. That if you're using a weapon, you gotta get rid of your mapping materials or set down your lantern in the first round of combat before you can take part. I think that's as stiff as a penalty as I feel like is called for. Setting the lantern down should not be that detrimental. As long as it's picked up after combat before you guys start moving on. So, yeah. So, yeah, Rogue's not going to do anything this turn. Eldoras is not going to do anything. They're just putting their stuff down, getting ready to mix it up. So that takes us back to now... Well, actually, the hero's turn again, because it's only that first turn that the Minotaur goes first, since he ambushed us. But now we go back to the heroes. Patience the dwarf. Gonna unload. He's a Minotaur. This, I don't get any bonus against him. Oh well. Okay, here we go. 6! Yeah! Explode, baby, explode! +3. So that's 9. With his other modifiers, brings it up to 14. Oh! So close. So close to doing 2 damage, but still just does 1. Okay. But I'll take it. This guy only has 4 health. So he's down to 3. Cleric attacks. My gosh. A 1. And let's see here. The rogue now is ready to kind of do something with the sling here. We do outnumber this guy. But I don't think that outnumbering thing applies except for melee attacks. So he'll just do a regular attack. D6 minus 1. Nope, that's not going to do it. Elderast. We used up that lightning spell. Did you remember to cross that off? You did. Okay. I don't think we're in a bind with this guy yet. So Elderast has got a staff, which I think is long enough that he'd be able to thwack him from where he's at. But I don't know. That's more Hero Quest rules kind of invading. I'll say for now that he can't. So then it'll be the Minotaur's turn. He gets 2 attacks. So he's going to attack the dwarf first. The dwarf does defend successfully, and the cleric does not. So the cleric is down to 2. I think I need to heal the cleric. Okay. Let's see here. Garavik the Noble III says, what do you think of realistic deaths in video games? This might make you uncomfortable. Read with caution. I think I'll be all right. But in some games, when you kill characters, they can die realistically and moan in pain, mostly first-person shooters. This is mostly in realistic shooters, by the way. That word realistic is interesting because I think there's kind of a sliding scale of realism when it comes to all kinds of things in both movies and video games. And, like, for example, you could have a violent movie where someone dies and there's blood and stuff, and it's realistic, we would say, but it's still not going to compare to watching one of the soldiers die in Saving Private Ryan, where there is no pretense of bravery in the final moments of some of those young men who are crying and calling out for their mothers in those final moments. I mean, it's just another level of realism. And so even when there's lots of blood and things like that, or if the graphics have a high fidelity to them, and so we would say they're realistic in that sense, I really kind of don't think of deaths in most action movie type things or horror movies as realistic. There's some degree of artistry to them. For example, in really violent movies that are playing up the brutality of it, you might see a bunch of blood fly off of them that's really an unrealistic amount. And it's really excessive. And I'm not bothered by that. I'm not grossed out by that or disturbed by that because I think I've just learned to translate the cinematic language of that kind of visual to what it's meant to convey, which I think is just this person was utterly killed, utterly defeated, utterly dominated and destroyed. That's what the excessive blood is communicating in that moment. It's a decisive defeat of that character. And so it's really going to depend, when you talk about like a realistic shooter, you added some details here, when they're like moaning in pain or something like that. There's not many, I haven't played many realistic shooters. The closest thing I can think about to kind of what you're talking about would be the famous scene from the opening of The Last of Us, which I haven't played much of that game. I've only played about like the first hour. But there's an opening scene with a really tragic death of a very vulnerable character. And that probably has even more of the kind of realism or emotional realism, maybe is what you're getting at with that question, than even probably the examples you're having in mind of realistic shooters, which, might have characters kind of moaning in pain, but I don't think they're really going to compare to that opening scene in The Last of Us. And so I guess it's a pretty broad question. What do you think of realistic deaths in video games? If they're leaning into it like in The Last of Us and it's being treated as this weighty, dramatic moment, I think it can serve the story and serve your investment in characters and stuff. But at the same time, as with so many things in various geek hobbies, it's not going to be good for everyone to watch. In fact, that opening scene in The Last of Us might be a lot harder for me to watch now. I'll go ahead and give a mild spoiler because I'm a dad and my boys are older now. And at the time that I tried an hour of that, my boys were very young, like still, I think, potty training or in diapers. And so I wasn't quite able to mentally personalize or put myself in the shoes of that moment like I would be able to now, I think, maybe. So there are certain like realistic dramas, portrayals of realistic tragedy in movies that are not good for me to watch. But because of where they'll take my mind afterward, thinking, well, what if something similar happens to me or to my family or something, and I can just get into this really unhealthy state of mind, So anyway, really broad question. If you had a more specific aspect of that you wanted my thoughts on, then you can specify what that would be. But those would be my thoughts for now on realistic deaths in video games. Okay, so I believe if I did things correctly, I specifically looked at the chat and addressed that when I was just about to take heroes' turns. If not, they're getting a free turn right now. Here we go. The dwarf is attacking the Minotaur again. Come on. Come on. Ugh. All right, he rolled a 2, which is modified up to a 7, which is not enough. Ugh, just one shy of doing damage. All right, Cleric, give it a go. Cleric rolls 5. That's still not going to do it, dang it. He's going to need an exploding 6 to do any damage. All right. Shaden, also going to need an exploding 6. Doesn't get it. Elderast, can't attack from back there. All right, so then it's the Minotaur. 2 attacks against the same guys in the front again. Dwarf does... Wait, maybe not. No, the dwarf does not succeed at his defense roll. That brings him down to 2. I'm going to have to get serious here. Cleric. Man, also fails his defense roll. That brings him down to a 1. I got to do some serious healing here. Okay, so heroes are about to take their turn. Garovic asks, you like old coins? I have a 1942 penny. No, I've never got into the coin collecting thing. Yeah, I can see maybe why some people would get into it, but that's never been something I've felt drawn to. That's interesting, though, to have that. That is a bit of an artifact. The dwarf now is going to... do I want him to attack? Yeah, I mean, at this point he's got a healing potion. We might not be able to stay in this dungeon much longer. At this point he's got a healing potion, if he really needs it. Come on now. 6! Explode, baby! Yes, and 5. So that's 11. 5 more. 16. That's 2 damage. Finally, I get a 2 damage hit in on this Minotaur, who now is definitely going to test morale, and at the very least is lowered by 1 level. So let's see here. He flees. He runs away. Very nice. So he counts as defeated. I can't remember for sure if we get to have his treasure. I'm going to rule that he drops his treasure on the way out. I think that is how that works. So he takes off. Let's roll for treasure. 5. That's pretty good. 3d6 times 10. All right, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 80 in gems there. So that brings me up to 140. Plus 16 is going to be 156. 156, okay. Plus 16 because the dwarf, again, is good at appraising, and that treasure came in the form of jewelry. We also get an XP roll for somebody, Let's give it to the cleric. Come on now. Yes! Cleric levels up. Beautiful. So he is now going to be level 4. And that's pretty significant because he rolls, his attack rolls get plus half his level rounded down. And so finally I get a +2 on all of my standard attacks, which makes me pretty happy. Very nice. And then he gets an additional health point. He was hanging on by 1. His max goes up to 8, and his current health goes up to 2, which, you know, he still needs to be healed big time. Defense, I think, is still, yeah, that's unaffected by this level up. But man, I'm pretty happy about that. Pretty happy about that. And that was the Minotaur that we just fought. That was a wandering monster too, wasn't it? Let's go back here. It was. Man. I feel like more often when I run into weird monsters, it's as wandering monsters. So yeah, that was here. And we fought the Minotaur. Yikes. Let's do some healing. Let's do some healing. My gosh. I think the cleric, he has 2 healing spells left. He's going to heal both himself. Let's see how that goes. Yes! 5 plus his level brings him up to max. So he's at 8 health. That's great. 1 healing spell left, and I will devote that to the dwarf. 3 plus level is going to be 7, 8, 9. Perfectly brings him up to his max health. Whew, nice. That went about as well as it could. Now at this point, in my backtracking, I'm going to kind of have to head back to the beginning anyway. But I'm now out of healing spells. Every character has 1 healing potion, so we can still rely on those. But I wouldn't be surprised if, when I get back close to the beginning, I'm just like, it's time to go. So we'll see what happens. All right, before I move on, let me jump into the chat here. Craig says, if not coins, is there anything that you have collected or hoarded in your life? That's a great question. And I made a video, I think it's a few years ago now, called Is Collecting a Sin? Because collecting is something that we as geeks tend to do and to enjoy. And, you know, of course, the reasonable question to ask of that is this materialism? Is there any sin in this? And a lot of it really has to do with the purpose, the motive of the collection. So if you're interested, I spent some time really collecting my thoughts and trying to share some ideas based on Scripture that would help us as we consider collecting whatever that thing might be that we're interested in collecting. So Is Collecting a Sin is a video that you can check out. But to answer your question, anything that I've collected or hoarded in my life, I would say more that I've hoarded, that would be too strong of a word probably, but things I've held on to past the point certainly of me using them, but it's the pretty rare thing that I hold on to just because I can't let go of it for some undefined reason. I kept a lot of my childhood toys, like Masters of the Universe and Transformers, telling myself that I would want my kids to be able to play with these someday. And the real test, of course, came when I had kids of the age to play with them. Was I going to hand them over and let them play with them, knowing what happens when various types of kids play with toys, especially maybe old toys? And yeah, I did follow through, and I did find myself comfortable and actually happy to say, here's all these free toys. Look at all these fantasy toys and stuff like that. And there was even the early 2000s He-Man animated series that had kind of rebooted the franchise, tried to revive it a bit. So there were some new, fresh modernly animated cartoons that the boys could watch. That I bought the series on DVD because I like that series. And so it was a really cool thing as a dad to be able to say, okay, cool. Here's this cartoon that's new, that's well made, that they enjoy, and here's all these toys that go right along with it, And so yeah, they definitely have enjoyed playing with those. One of my sons still has some of them in his room. I keep Castle Grayskull, which if you're eagle-eyed in some of my videos, you can see in the background off to my right. But when they've asked to play, can I play with Castle Grayskull? I'll say, okay, yeah, just be careful with it, and I'll let them, use it for a little while. I do have a box of other toys that I just haven't bothered to take out or see if the boys are interested in. I've just been too lazy to get it out, but I suppose I could get that out. I also have saved a number of video games. Some of them saying to myself, well, I want to be able to keep playing these, and I have gone back to a number of them. The PlayStation 1 games I haven't. They're just harder to be able to play on modern consoles, which is a real shame. And at some point they became valuable enough that I'm like, I would kind of like to keep on to these, let their value continue to grow, and maybe sell them at some point. But their value is not at the point yet where it's worth it to me to deal with the hassle of selling it on eBay or on Craigslist and just having to deal with people. When they're, I'll know the number when I see it. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I will sell these at some point. There's no reason to keep them for my boys. They can get access to these games in other ways, but and I don't really display them. It's just kind of like at this point, I am hanging on to them for, I think, a fairly practical purpose. So, yeah, I don't know that I really. I guess there's always maybe a little bit of a tendency that I want to watch for. It's like, am I holding on to this because I'm actually going to make use of it at some point, whether myself or lending it to someone else or something like that. And I really try to make myself subject to that. And so I don't think I'm much of a collector. I will say though that an area that I have to watch out for is in digital collecting. Like sometimes just because something's on sale, I'll feel like, oh, I should get this now while it's on sale. I used to be a lot worse in that area, but I've really toned that down quite a bit. But it is an area I have to watch out for, where I can end up buying games and never really getting around to giving them a good try and really playing them as much as I had intended to. So, yeah. Anyway, that's probably a much longer answer to your fairly simple question. And then Garavik the Noble III says, so here's what I mostly meant. And for people just joining, read with caution. In a game ground branch, I'm not sure what that means. If you shoot a guy in the neck, there's an animation of him choking on his own blood until he dies. And in Verdun, I think I've heard of that, a game I love, some soldiers will scream in pain when they get shot, and you can hear their cries and everything. Hope that cleared it up. If it did not, sorry. These are multiplayer games, by the way. That's really interesting that they would. I haven't played. Not played either of those games. Maybe Ground Branch is the name of another game. But Verdun I have heard of, but I've not played either of them. It's interesting in multiplayer, when you're in a single-player game, I think that it can really be intended to be this story type of experience. And the creators of the game, the writers as well, are wanting you to create some kind of they're wanting to create some kind of an emotional experience for you. I can imagine that being a valuable experience, even if you feel disturbed by it. In the same way, and I think this is the point where games, in rare instances, not regular by any means, but they're starting to get to the point where people are recognizing their potential with movies to not just be light, actiony, substanceless entertainment, but creating moments that unsettle people. There are many movies that are very worthwhile to experience that we would not say are fun or funny or enjoyable, but they're engaging, we might say, gripping or moving or something like that. And I think that there are some games being created now, maybe more in the indie space than in the AAA space, but there are some in the AAA space too, that are trying to create a substantive, worthwhile, dramatic experience, maybe trying to elicit some emotions in service to a theme that they're presenting. I don't know. I have to look at the games on a case-by-case basis. And I think there can be real value in that. What's interesting to me about this is that you say it's a multiplayer game, and I don't play multiplayer. And so I just have to speculate what that must be like. Does that work against purpose? Say, for example, if the game creators want you to have this heavy emotional experience, does that work against purpose when you are in a multiplayer game? Because I feel like the vibe of multiplayer is you're not engaged in the story. It's these are other players that you're playing presumably against in most cases. And so how do the game makers intend for you to feel when you successfully kill another player and then the avatar representing that player is realistically showing pain and agony and things like that? Is that meant to be funny and kind of a sadistic type of humor or tongue-in-cheek? If they take it really far and it's like a Saints Row type thing, and they're getting batted around in a ragdoll fashion, I think that it's fitting to laugh at something like that. But if they're going for this really heavy, dramatic thing, when you kill someone else's avatar in a multiplayer thing, that would seem to conflict with just the natural emotional mode that players are typically going to be in. On the other hand, maybe, because again, I'm not familiar with these games at all, maybe what they're trying to do is help you to humanize other players. And when another player dies, not be completely callous like you might be in other multiplayer games, like, yeah, got you, but like actually thinking, man, I just killed this character here, and another player, maybe on some level there's a parallel there that they're trying to get you to feel that, yeah, you did defeat this other player. It doesn't feel great to them. Of course they're not feeling this, but I mean, like, I don't know. That would be like, depending on what it looks like. Again, I'd have to play the game to see, and I probably won't. But if that's the impression I got, really heaviness when you kill this multiplayer, another player in multiplayer, that would be like, man, I would love to sit down with the developer and say, what were you going for here? Is this what you're intending for us to feel? That whole idea is really interesting to me. Anyway, and let's see, Rugged Warrior says, I deleted my credit card off my PlayStation account, so I'm not tempted to mindlessly buy games. Yeah, good for you. That's smart. That's smart. And Craig says, that's an interesting thought about collecting, yet being willing to share and let go at any point. Having that self-control is really great. Well, I don't present myself as a model of self-control. You could probably still catch times where I'm like thinking to myself, I'm not ready to offer to lend this out. And some of that is just a logistic, a pragmatic thing, like, I've seen how this person takes care of their other things. I'd like this to be something I don't have to replace and can enjoy myself, can let my boys or other people enjoy, so it's not necessarily completely selfish, but there is a selfish component for sure in there. I am still very much always in the struggle of letting go of things. But that is an area I've been trying to grow in. I think there's been some good positive steps for me over the years, but still an ongoing battle. Okay, well, that was great chatting with you guys. What the crap is happening in the game? I was about to start rolling for backtracking. So my party is still positioned to be ready for any surprise attacks, and we are. Let's see. We did Minotaur was right here. So we need to go here. This counts as its own space, and then we'll go there. So let's roll for here. Please, no wandering monsters. Dang it! Oh my gosh. Okay. This is getting serious now. What kind of wandering monster are we dealing with? 1. So it should be pretty weak, but let's put a little marker here to indicate that the party is there. That is definitely minions, or vermin, excuse me. Or is it minions? Maybe it's minions. I rolled a 1. Let me double check and see what the wandering monster chart says. Maybe you never run into minions, or vermin, excuse me, as a wandering monster. 57. Oh, no, it's vermin. It's vermin. Great. Okay. I can probably deal with that. So, rolled a 3 for vermin. We're going 1, 2, and 3. The Fiendish Ferns, which I've fought before in this very outing. In this very dungeon, I mean. So let's get my guys turned around. Ready to attack the Fiendish Ferns. Their level's pretty low. That's nice. So let's see here. These are vermin. Fiendish Ferns. Their level is 4, because that's my highest character level. Their amount of them is just 4, so that's nice. 0 attacks, 0 treasure. What's the deal with these guys again? I can't remember. The Ferns do not attack, but each hero has a 2 in 6 chance that the Ferns will seep into their shoes. That's right. Oh, that's disturbing. Halflings and trolls who go around with bare feet have a 4 in 6 chance. Wood elves, druids, and conservationists are immune. Heroes touched by the Ferns lose 1 life and 1 carried item of their choice. Ugh. Ferns are automatically destroyed by any flame-based or lightning-based spell. If destroyed with melee attacks, heroes attacking them must roll the same chance of being touched for every attack they perform. Okay. So, they don't attack, but I think that in the spirit of them being a wandering monster, I should probably roll for each of my heroes for this 2 in 6 chance of getting Fiendish Ferns in their shoes. Dwarf first. Okay, he dodges. Good. Cleric. Dodges. Rogue. Dodges. Elderast. Dodges. Okay, Elderast. Burn them! Burn these suckers. It's not cool. So I've got 1 fireball spell left. I don't want to use it like this, but my gosh, these things are nasty. They'll do damage, they'll take my stuff away? Don't be taking my stuff. I like to loot. I mean, speaking of hoarding, that's where I definitely am a hoarder, is in RPGs. I will pick up everything that I possibly can, until the point of diminishing returns if there's carrying capacity involved. Otherwise, it's all mine. Oh, that makes me want to play Elix 2, where you have no carrying capacity, like no limits on your capacity. Anyway, burned, dead. Vermin indeed, making me use one of my precious fireball spells. It's disgusting.